in this country, we're still removing children from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families at, you know, significantly higher rates than we do for children in other cohorts, in other groups, and that she's asking the question as to what can we do. Do you have any thoughts about what we can do to avoid us or guard against the past horrors of genocide of Aboriginal people and your experience of that? Is there any thoughts that you have?
Yes, and I know that Australia's record with your Aboriginal peoples is no more glorious than Canada's. I know that an Aboriginal male young male in Australia has got something like 12 to 20 times the risk of being jailed than a Caucasian male.
Yeah.
And again, these are people that knew how to parent better than we Western, at least for the last several thousand years. So it's a macro question. So first of all, there's been a lot of rhetoric in Canada about acknowledging what we've done and apologizing, and I know the same thing has happened in Australia. But what has been done to practically improve living conditions of Native peoples? Not much, not here in Canada. You'll know better what's happening in Australia. So how about looking at the conditions that they're living under? How should I say this? So as a Jewish person, Jews received reparations for what happened during the genocide. We haven't given reparations yet. The U.S. have not been given reparations, but the multi-generational impact of that trauma is still blighting their lives. So how about deciding that this really matters and that we owe people something? So how about looking at the living conditions, asking them what they need to repair the damage that was done to them? Supporting healing programs in these communities generously. Asking these Native peoples who have beautiful healing traditions, by the way, that in some ways are wiser than our Western medical traditions. I don't say that they're technologically advanced, but they're, in a human sense, they're wiser. How about supporting such programs in those communities? How about when these kids come before the court, they're not punished, but they're actually offered rehabilitation and treatment? This is true not just for Aboriginal kids, but any child, but particularly for that community. I mean, when I was in Australia, there was a terrible example of a young Native man, young Aboriginal man, who died in prison because they were trying to restrain him. They were yelling at him, and as they were yelling at him, he got more and more into a flight of. So he got more upset, and the more upset he got, the more they restrained him until he died. Well, how about training people in the law about what happened to these people and what people need in order to calm down rather than to get more agitated? How about we taught that? How about the schools were all informed by trauma? So what I'm saying is that the ultimate solution is a trauma-informed society through education, through child development, through the child welfare system. Let's not be so quick to take these kids away. In Canada, too, most of the children in care are Native kids. Native people make up 5% of the population. We're still taking their kids away from them in the name of protecting these kids. Well, we could do a whole lot better. So that's a social question. And if I'm opportunistic enough to mention, there's a film coming about my work on trauma in a couple of weeks. It'll be online. It's called The Wisdom of Trauma. And anybody can just Google The Wisdom of Trauma wisdomoftrauma.com, and the filmmakers ask for a contribution to defray the cost. I have no financial stake in it. You don't have to make a contribution. You're just welcome to join for $0. You can see this film. But the point I'm making in this film is, at least one of the points I'm making is that what we need is a trauma-informed society. So the broad question is, what can we do? We need to become trauma-informed. Trauma-informed means we understand what happens to people when they're traumatized, and not to blame them for it, but to support them in the healing. That could be done. Wouldn't cost more money than what we're spending now on medical costs and legal costs, but it would take a shift, a 180-degree shift in perspective. Which, by the way, of course, I know that Joe, you and your organization have been doing and advocating for, so which makes it such a pleasure to work with you.
Well, thank you, Gabor, and that was a very strong answer, and you know, everything that you've said I concur with. I agree, and a trauma-informed society would be a you know, a much softer place for children, and enable us to appreciate the needs that have gone unmet for adults as well. So look, we appreciate your time. I know it's really late in Canada, so everyone, there's been, I think we've had about 940 odd people listening today to you, Gabor. So that's a lot of people, and a lot of people are starting to say thank you, and we appreciate everything that you've said today. We hope this is not going to be the last time you and I talk across the oceans. So we'll be in touch, and thanks again for your contribution.